Hello, everybody. My name's Maddie, and I'm an implementation specialist here at Lightspeed. I'll be going through today's eCom C-Series design webinar with you all. Now, hopefully you're able to hear me and you can see my screen okay, but if you are having some difficulties, those usually just can be fixed by hopping out of the webinar platform and then popping back in. If those problems do seem to persist, though, you can give my team a call at one of the numbers on the screen and they'll be able to give you a hand. Now, it looks like we're just waiting on a couple more people, so I'll give it about 2 minutes before we get started. So now is a great time to get a coffee, get a snack, do whatever you want to do before we settle in for the next hour. So I'll be right back in about 2 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, it looks like everybody is here, so we're going to go ahead and get started. For anyone just joining us now, hi, my name's Maddie, and I'm an implementation specialist here at Lightspeed. I'll be going through today's eCom C-Series design webinar with you all. Now, hopefully you're able to hear me and you can see my screen okay, but if you are having some difficulties, those usually just can be fixed by hopping out of the webinar platform and then popping back in. If those problems do seem to persist, though, you can give my team a call with one of the numbers on the screen and they'll be able to give you a hand. Now, this is just a little bit of backstory about me so you can put a face to the name. So as I said, my name's Maddie. I've worked in the retail/customer service industry for about 8 years now. I currently onboard retail, eCom, and loyalty here at Lightspeed. Pre-pandemic, concerts were my absolute most favorite activity, so I'm very excited to be getting back into those. And I'm a very, very big Harry Styles fan. This is an overview of the onboarding journey that you're going through with our e-commerce product. Now, hopefully at this point, you've either had a chance to watch the product webinar or watch the recording, either see the live one or watch the recording. For today, we are moving into all things design. So we're going to talk about how to build your website using the tools that Lightspeed gives you. After that, you'll also have the option of attending a one-on-one consultation with an implementation specialist. Now, that's a great time to go through any questions that might have popped up or any specific workflows that you might have in mind. I know we go through a ton of content in these webinars, so that one-on-one consultation can be really, really valuable. After that, you'll also have the option of attending our SEO and conversion webinars for a little bit more information. And just as a heads up, we are going to be recording today's webinar. So when we're all finished, you will receive a copy of the recording in your follow-up email. Now, you're more than welcome to rewatch it yourself, or you can also pass it along to anyone else who didn't get the chance to attend today. I do see we have some other Harry Styles fans here today, so that makes my heart very, very happy, very exciting. Moving into our agenda for today, we are going to start off with some theme essentials. We're going to talk a little bit about how to choose a theme and then how to go about customizing it. We'll talk about managing your content and images that you'll be entering in, and then we'll touch on some custom development options as well. We'll talk a little bit about Lightspeed payments for eCom, if that's what you're planning on using for your payment processing. Then we'll also go through a couple additional topics in terms of content pages, navigation links, and we'll talk a little bit about entering in a blog. Now, I know it's not listed here, but we are going to have some time at the very end of our session for a Q&A. If you do have any questions that come up, though, please feel free to type them into the questions box, and I'll do my best to get to them as I see them. If I don't get to your question right away, I'll circle back to it in the Q&A session, but if I still don't get to it there, I will send you an email follow-up with some additional information. We are all done our housekeeping, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into things. But before we do, really quickly, I have a very, very quick poll I'm going to run for everyone. This is just seeing if it's your first eCom, just gives me a general idea as to where everybody's at. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll now, if you don't mind taking just a quick second to answer for me. Awesome. Looks like we're almost all good to go. I'll give it another couple seconds to make sure everybody's had a chance to answer. Awesome, and we are good to go. And it does look like the majority of us, this is going to be our first website, which is very, very exciting. So starting off in our eCom back office, hopefully at this point, this page is starting to look familiar for you. Very, very first thing I wanted to touch on is if at any point you wanted to open up your website and view it as if you're a customer, you have a couple ways that you can do that. In the very top right corner of your account, you have a View Store button, and this would open up your website. Alternatively, if you hover over your store name in the top left corner of your account here, a little eye icon pops up. If we hit that eye icon, this also opens up our website. Now, there's not much going on here. It's pretty plain, but as we go through our webinar today, we're going to talk about adding in content, and by the end of our session, this is going to look a little bit more like an actual website. Now, there are two areas I wanted to focus on right off the bat, and the first is going to be with our categories at the top of the page here. Now, these are going to be our navigation links. This is how customers are going to navigate around our website and see all of the different types of products that we're selling. The very first time that you open up your website, it's very possible that this section up here is going to be completely blank. And that's because we have to make our categories visible. So these navigation tabs are going to come from the categories we entered in initially into retail that then sync over to eCom. So on the eCom side of things, we have to make these visible so customers can see them. To make them visible, we're going to head back to our back office for a second here. We're going to head over to our products tab on the left-hand side of the page. Staying on that left-hand side of the page, we're then going to go into categories. And now I'm going to scroll down to the bottom because that's where I have some categories that are not set up to be visible. But let's take a look at this apparel category. So as you can see, if we look at this visibility column, everything is set to not visible. So all we have to do is just switch these over. So I'm going to use my little bulk selector tool on the left-hand side. Where it says how many items I've selected, we're going to go ahead and say make visible. Now you'll notice that my top level category apparel is still set to be not visible. Any categories that have subcategories attached to them have to be treated a little bit differently. So to make these ones visible, we're going to click into that category. So we're going to click where it says apparel. Scrolling down to the very, very bottom of the page, we have a toggle here for include in catalog. Turning this toggle on and saving our changes. If I open up our website again here, just do a little refresh, we now have apparel populating on our top line navigation there. So that's the first thing I wanted to touch on. Second thing is if we scroll down to the very, very bottom of our website, we have this section here that says information. Now, all of these are content pages. These content pages are created by default for you. Now, there's no actual content within them. So if you want content in them, you'll have to pop it in. But there might be some pages here that you want to hide or add in. If you're wanting to modify these content pages, we're going to head to our back office again. I'm going to go back to my main menu. And staying on the left-hand side of the page, we're going to go into the Content tab. From here, this is where you'll see a list of all of those content pages you have available. And if you wanted to enter anything in, all you have to do is click on the page, and then you have a full content section where you can enter in everything you want to say. Right up at the top of the page, you do have a visibility toggle, so if you wanted to turn that page off, and you can also modify the title if it doesn't necessarily fit with what you're trying to convey or what that page is about. In the top right corner, you do also have the option to manually add in content pages as well, if there's anything else that's not quite covered within here. Now, when it comes to Lightspeed payments, we're going to come back to this near the end of our session because there are going to be a few content pages that you are required to fill out, but we'll focus on that again at the end of our session. I'm going to head back to our main menu, and let's go ahead and get into the actual design of things. So we're going to pop into our Design tab on the left-hand side of the page. And this is what you should see. You should see the Ignite theme that's been installed into your account. Now, this is the default theme that gets installed into everybody's account. This is the theme that we're fully going to explore today. Once we're done looking at this theme, I will show you how to access the theme store where you can view additional themes, but the Ignite theme is a free theme created by Lightspeed, and it's the one that will be installed into your account right off the bat. So we're going to go ahead and hit our Edit Theme button in the top right of the page there. And this is going to be our theme editor. So on the left-hand side of the page, we have a couple different types of changes that we're going to make, and we're going to go through all of these. With that being said, there are two main types that we can make. General typically are going to be changes that are made globally across the whole website or stay consistent across the whole website. Pages, on the other hand, is where we can curate actual specific pages on our website, like our home page. In the bottom left-hand corner, we have a button for the theme documentation. Now, this is essentially just a little bit of a manual for this theme, gives you lots of information about all of the ins and outs and all of the different sections. So if there's something that you're curious about or you want some more information on, you can always take a look at the theme documentation. We do also have a Contact Developer button. Now, in this case, this is a Lightspeed theme, so this would just pop you back to our eCom support team who would be happy to help you. But if you decide to look through the theme store, a lot of those other themes do come from third-party developers. So this would link you up with the developer of that theme, which wouldn't necessarily be Lightspeed. Up on the top of the page, we do also have three little icons. And these are different views that you can use to just make sure that everything is looking consistent on your website as you make your changes. So kind of on the left-hand side, we have a phone or a mobile view. Up on the top middle, we have an iPad or a tablet view. And then over on the right, we have like a laptop or a desktop computer view. So you can just make sure as you're making changes that everything looks consistent across all of the different views. Let's go ahead and actually get started with making some changes. So starting over on the left-hand side of the page, we're going to stay in general in the header section here. So popping into our navigation section, what this one is going to do is this gives our customers a home link on our top navigation. So to the left of all of our categories, it would add in a little home button so customers can always easily access the home page of our website. Now, even if we decide to not have this button, customers are going to be able to click the top left corner of our account where it currently has our store name. Eventually, this is going to become our logo, and that would also take them back to the home page as well. So if you find that maybe you have quite a few categories on your top navigation and it's getting a little busy, you don't have to have this home button if you don't want to. But that shows up over on the left-hand side there. Moving back over to our settings, we'll pop into the logo section, and this is where we can upload our logo. So we're going to go ahead and browse our files, and we have our logo. There we go. So that's populating in the top left corner of our account now. Underneath that, we do have an option for something called a white logo. Now we're going to put a pin in this one for now because it ties in with another setting that we're going to see in just a minute. So we're going to come back to this one. Underneath that, we have our logo height, and this is where we can change the size of our logo. So maybe I find it's a little too small there. Pop in another size, expands it, makes it a little bit larger. And then down at the bottom of the page, we have an option for something called a favicon. Now, this is kind of a funny word, but what this is going to be is the little icon displayed in the tabs of your user's browsers. So as you can see in my internet browser here, I have quite a few tabs open. I promise it's not to annoy you. They are all going to be useful for today, but all of those tabs have a little icon on them. That's going to be your favicon. So if you have something in specific that you'd like to use, you're more than welcome to load it in here. From here, I'm actually going to hit the publish button in the top right corner of my account, basically just to save and lock in my changes. This also makes those changes live on your website. So if we were to view it as if we were a customer, we can see how everything is progressing. Scrolling back up to the top left though, we'll head back to settings. Moving into our message bar, that's going to be this pale gray bar that we currently see on the top of our website here above our logo. Totally up to you what you want to say here. If you have a promotion that you want to talk about, if you offer free shipping or wanted to put your store address or store hours, totally up to you. I'm going to say free shipping available on orders over $100. So that modified our text up top. And then for our bottom two options, this is where we can change the background color of that message bar and also the text color of that message bar as well. So maybe not really digging the gray, doesn't really fit with the theme of my website. I can go ahead and use the color wheel to choose a color that I want to use instead. We'll give that a second to load. And we'll just change our text color here. And there we are. Now you will notice that there is a little code that populates once we choose a color, and this color code is also called a hex code. Now, as you're scrolling through all of the different color options and playing around with the color wheel, if you find that there's a color you really, really like, I would just recommend taking note of that color code so you always have easy access to it. If you already know that there's a specific color you want to use, instead of scrolling through the wheel, you can just type your color code or your hex code in there, and it'll populate with the correct color. We'll head back to our settings and moving into our display settings now. First option is something called a transparent header, and this is where that white logo we touched on earlier comes back into play. So as you can see with the header of my website, we have our pink message bar up at the top, and then we have a white background. Currently, my logo and my categories are floating over that white background. Maybe what I want to do is eliminate that white background completely and move this big gray box, which is eventually going to become an image, move it up so my categories and my logo are floating on top of that box. I'm going to turn this on so you can see what it looks like. Depending on the image you decide to upload in this big gray box, you may or may not like how this looks. Might be a little bit too busy with your categories and your logo, but you'll notice that our logo currently isn't populating. That's because if we decide to have this transparent header option turned on, we have to make sure we upload our logo in the white logo section, not just in the regular logo section. So again, something we can always play around with or go through in a one-on-one, or you could always talk to our support team about that if you need a bit of a refresher, not a problem. I am going to turn this option off for now though. And underneath that, we have an option to enter in a brands page. What this is going to do is this is going to give our customers a little brands tab on our top navigation. So if they decided they wanted to see a list of all of the brands we sell, that's how they would access it. So up on the top right, we have a little brands tab. If our customer was to open that up, it would show a list of all of the brands we sell. And from there, they could shop by brand and see all of the products we carry per brand. Now, one other thing I did want to mention is you might have noticed that your website back here isn't fully functional. It's not going to allow you to click through the website to access different areas of your website, because this is really just used to preview the design changes that you're making. if you want to see if that kind of flow works or how it actually works on your website, you'd want to publish your changes, then open up your website as if you're a customer and play around with things that way. We will move back to our settings. From here, we're going to go ahead and pop into our footer section. Opening up our footer text, we'll scroll down to the very bottom of our website here. Now, this is where we can have text that shows up right underneath our logo in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, by loading in our logo in the header section, it automatically populates down here. So we didn't miss anything. But again, totally up to you what you want to pop in here. It could be a slogan, it can be your store details, totally up to you. Maybe I'll say new hours, if I can spell, Monday to Saturday, maybe 10 to 9 p.m. You can tell it is almost Friday. Give that a quick second to load, heading back down, and we now have our text showing up underneath our logo. Going back to our settings and popping into the social section, this is where we can add in our social media links. So right now, it's just all Lightspeed links, but you're more than welcome to go in and replace them with your own social media links. If there are any social media channels listed here that you don't have for whatever reason, just go ahead and clear out the link entirely. Maybe I don't have a YouTube or a Pinterest for my business, so we'll clear those options out. And then if we scroll back down, you'll notice it removed the little logos for us. We will go back to our settings and moving into the visual section now, starting off with our colors tab. This is where we can modify some of the colors that are going to be used on our website. Now, for our first two options, this is to do with some of our buttons. As you might have noticed on the website, we do have some buttons that pop up on the website. This is where we can change not only the background color of those buttons, but the text color as well. So maybe the black is a little bit too harsh against or with the theme of the rest of my website. You're more than welcome to go in and modify the background color and the button text color if that's what you want. Underneath that, we can also modify our header and footer background color and our header and footer text color. Now, something to keep in mind with our header and footer sections is that both of these are tied together for these specific settings. So if I decide that I want to modify the text color or the background color, it is going to change it for both. So for example, maybe I've decided I want to make this a different color. We'll just change it to something crazy so you can see what it looks like. So it changed it for my header section. And if I scroll back down, it's changed it for my footer section as well. So just something to keep in mind is that both of those sections are going to be tied together. I'm going to go back and change it to the white we had going on though. A little bit less busy. And we'll publish those changes. Moving back up to the top and going back to settings, we'll head into our typography section. And in here, this is where we can modify the actual font styles that are going to be used on our website. We have two different types of fonts that we can modify. With our first one, this is where we can modify the titles or the headings of sections or pages. And then we can also modify the fonts that are used for just the general text of our website. These are Google Web Fonts, so if you already know what you want to use, there is a big long list that you can choose from. Let me modify something so we can see if it changes. Oh yeah, that's not my vibe. Might be someone's vibe, but just so you can kind of get an idea as to what that looks like, you can go ahead and modify those titles or headings or just the general text of your website. Okay, we'll roll with that one for now. Down at the bottom, you can also modify the body text color that you're using on the website. If you want it to be something else, maybe again, doesn't quite work with the rest of the theme of your website, you can go in and modify the general text color. We will go back to settings and popping into our background option. This is where we can modify the main background color of our store. So kind of for this part here, you can see behind my images, it's a very pale gray color. Maybe I want it to match my header and footer section, or I want it to be something different. Again, we can go ahead and choose either from the color wheel or pop in a color code that we know we want to use. Awesome. Publish our changes just to lock all of those in. We'll go back to settings, and moving into our final option in the general section, we're going to go into advanced. There's only one option in here, and this is for something called a coming soon page. Now, as you're building out your website, maybe you don't want any customers finding your website and seeing it while it's in progress. That's where this coming soon page can come into play. What this is going to do is, if this is turned on and a customer tries to visit your website, they're just going to be hit with a page that says coming soon, shows your logo and your social media links if you've entered them in. So your customer's not going to see anything that you're working on. I'm going to turn this on. We'll publish our changes and we'll do a little preview just so you can see what it looks like. So this is what our customers are going to see. They have our logo. It just says coming soon. If the newsletter functionality is turned on, customers could sign up for our newsletter, and then it also shows our social media links. The caveat with this coming soon page is if you want to view the website as if you're a customer and see how things are progressing, you're going to be hit with this coming soon page as well. There is a workaround for that, and there is a way around it. So I'm going to head to my theme documentation for a second. So we're going to head to our back office. And in the bottom left-hand corner, we're going to pop into our documentation section. So this opens up the theme manual that we have available. We're going to go into the general settings section because that's where this coming soon page is located. And if we scroll down to the very bottom of the page, this gives you some instructions that talks about how to give yourself the ability to create an account so you can bypass that coming soon page, but restrict that capability for any other customers who try to view the website while it's still in progress. This is something that you're more than welcome to try on your own if you want to try setting it up. We can also talk about it in a one-on-one, or you could contact our support team if you need some assistance with this. I'm going to head out of our documentation though, and I am going to turn this off just so that way we can continue viewing the website kind of normally. We'll publish our changes. We will go back to our settings, and that's it for the general side of things. Popping into pages, this section, especially this homepage section here, is likely where you're going to be spending most of your time. Now, on the left-hand side of the page, you have a list of all of the different components you can modify on the website or on the homepage of your website. And the order that they show up in on that left-hand side of the page is the same order that they're displayed in on your website. So it is relatively straightforward to keep track of where you are. Starting off with our headlines, that's going to be this big gray box that's at the top of our website here. Typically, this is where we're going to upload images. Now, our first setting on the top left is for something called Headlines Autoplay. For our headlines here, we can have up to 3 different images. And if we have multiple images, this setting would automatically scroll through each of the images. So it would kind of be like a little slideshow for your customers. If this is turned off, customers are still going to see those 3 images. They would just have to click with the arrows on the left or the right to get to the next or the previous image. Underneath that, we just have a toggle to activate this feature if it's something we want to have. And then we have a spot where we can actually upload our image. We're going to go ahead and choose an image here. So there we are. We have our image on our homepage. Continuing on down the left side, though, we have an option for our headline 1 title. Now that's going to be that big text that shows up on the image. Maybe I'll pop in just saying we are now open. So that shows up kind of over on the right-hand side there. Underneath that, we have an option for something called the Headline 1 label. This would be smaller text that shows above that title. So I'll enter something in here again so you can see what it looks like. Perfect. And that shows up above our title there. Continuing on down the left-hand side, we have our button text. So we have a button on that image. If we want it to say something else besides shop now, you're more than welcome to modify that text. If you decide that you don't want to have a button at all you have to do is remove the text from that spot there. If that section is blank, it's not going to leave a blank button on the website. Now, something that frequently gets missed that kind of goes hand in hand with those buttons is underneath that, we have a section for headline 1 button URL. If you are choosing to have a button on your website, customers assume that by clicking on that button, it takes them somewhere. What you have to do is you have to tell Lightspeed where you want that button to take the customer when they click on it. So all you'd have to do at this point is open up your website, navigate to where you want the customer to end up, and copy the URL. You'd paste it in here, and that way when the customer clicks on the button, it takes them wherever you want it to take them. Not a broken button that doesn't do anything. Underneath that, we do just have an option to modify the positioning of the content, so the label and the title and the button on that image. It can be centered over to the left or over to the right. There we go, we popped ours over to the left. And then we have all of the same options for our second headline and all of the same options for our third headline. So up to you if you want to have just 1, 2, or 3. I am going to turn off the second one just so it stops scrolling over to the next one. But we'll go ahead and publish our changes to lock those in. Scrolling back up to the top left, we will head back to our settings and we'll continue on down the list. So underneath that, we have an option for our product carousel. First option is to choose if we want to have this section turned on or not. And then underneath that is where we can choose the source for where these products are being pulled from. Now, if we want to showcase products on the homepage of our website, you'll want to make sure to have this turned on. And there are 3 different sources that we can choose from. The first one, newest, and the last one, popular, are both going to be generated by Lightspeed. Newest is just going to be the products that most recently have been made visible on your website. Popular is going to be your bestsellers. If you want to have more control over the products that are going to be shown on your homepage, you'd want to choose the featured products option. Now, you're not going to actually choose your products from within your theme editor here. We're going to circle back to that one in a second. But featured products is where you can have more control on the products that are going to be on your homepage. Underneath that, we have an option for a display title, and that would just be a little title above that section that either says featured products, newest products, or popular products, depending on the source that you've decided to use. We'll go back to our settings and moving into our promo banners section. That's going to be these 2 little guys down here. Now, our first option is to either enable or disable this. Something to keep in mind is if you only enable one of these promo banners, what happens is it gets a little bit funky. So I'm going to turn off my first one. We'll give that a second to load. And what it has done is it's expanded the one that we decided to leave. So depending on the image you want to upload in there, this might work perfectly, or you may not love it, totally up to you. But do keep in mind that if you have one promo banner, it makes it a little bit larger. If you decide to do 2, that's when you get the 2 smaller ones. So I'm going to turn mine back on. From here, we'll go ahead and upload an image into our promo banner 1 section. So there we are. Moving down on the left-hand side, we can modify the title, so that big text that shows up on the image. We can also modify the button text. Again, if it doesn't necessarily fit or if we want to completely remove the button, we could go ahead and just clear that section out. If you are going to have a button, remember, you've got to link it somewhere. There has to be a URL in there that customers can use. And then underneath that, we have all of the same options for our second promo banner if we choose to have that turned on. I'm going to load in a second one here just so you can start to get an idea as to what it looks like. So there we are. And then underneath that, all of the same options for our title, button text, and a URL. We'll head back up to the top left and go back to settings. Moving down to our featured categories section, similar to featured products, this is where we can feature specific categories on our homepage. Now, our only options in here are to either turn this on or turn it off, and then we can choose if we want a featured categories title or if we don't want that at all. For featured categories, there is no option to have Lightspeed generate this for you. If this is a feature you want to have, you'll have to choose which categories are showcased on the homepage of your website. Now we're going to switch gears just for a second, and we're going to talk about how to choose those categories and products that you might want to showcase on the homepage. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hit the little Lightspeed logo in the top left corner to get back to our main menu here, back to our back office. From here, we are going to go back into our design tab. But instead of going into our theme editor, we're going to stay on the left-hand side of the page, and we can go into either featured products or featured categories. So opening up the featured products section, likely this is going to be blank the first time you pop in here. So we'd hit the add product button in the top right, and then you would go ahead and just select from your inventory which items you want to have showcased on the homepage of your website. Exact same process for our featured categories. Going over to our featured categories tab on the left-hand side of the page, we would hit the add category button in the top right. And then from our categories, we would choose which one we want to showcase on our homepage. So I do find a lot of people get tripped up with this section just because you make the assumption that it's going to be within your actual theme editor to actually choose those products and categories, but you just have to back out one screen to your main menu, and then you'll see them popping up. Let's go ahead and get back into our theme editor though. So I'm going to go over to the theme editor on the top left, and we'll hit our blue edit theme button over on the right-hand side. From there, we're going to continue on with our Pages tab, and we're going to go into our Hero banner next. So I'll scroll down a little bit here, and that's going to be this big gray rectangle here. Now, similar to our headlines, it's another spot where we can upload an image. You're more than welcome to go ahead and turn this off or turn it on. That's your first option there. Then we have all of the same options we saw for our headlines. We can go in and we can give it a title. We can also give it a label. So that was that small text that shows above the title. We can give it a button, and then also popping in a URL. At the very bottom of the page here, this is where you can upload your image. And now sometimes I find people don't necessarily want another image of their storefront or of their products that they're selling. I have seen people make like a little collage of product reviews or testimonials from other customers. They've kind of created a collage of that in Canva or another photo editing platform, and they've loaded that in here instead. So it can be a little bit different. There's lots that you can do in here to really make it unique and really make it stand out. We'll publish our changes. Heading back up to our settings, we'll move into our popular brand section, and that's going to be this section right here. If you have this turned on, this is going to display logos for the 10 brands on your website that have the most products made visible on them. So not necessarily the most popular brands, but it's going to be the brands that have the most products made visible on the website. If you're wanting to actually add in your logo, that's something I'll circle back to in our Q&A session. I believe it's touched on in the product webinar, but we'll circle back to it in the Q&A. Moving back to our settings, going into our blog preview. If we choose to have a blog turned on, this is where we can showcase our 3 most recent blog posts on our homepage to try and catch customers' attention and get them to open one of these posts up. Moving back to our settings, our final option within the homepage section is for some image settings. I'm just going to scroll up a touch here. Our first option is for our product image formatting. So in here, we can choose if we want our images to be square or portrait. One might look better with the images you've decided to upload. Then we have an option for show full product images and show full category images. Both of these settings do the same thing. One of them is just for products, the other is for categories. What this is going to do is this is going to resize your product images to kind of fit the predetermined spot they're given within Lightspeed here. Now, depending on where your images are coming from, you may or may not want to turn these sections on. If all of your images are from the same place and they're all the same size, I would suggest turning this on so that way everything is resized consistently. If all of your images are from different places, they're different sizes, it's kind of a jumble of different types of images, you're likely going to want to leave this turned off because things are going to resize inconsistently. Let me see if I can toggle this on, and I don't know if it's going to make too many changes with these. Yeah. So as you can see, it resized my images to kind of fit the predetermined spot there, but my socks look perfect. That's how I would want them to look. My gin and my book, on the other hand, they kind of have some weird borders on the outside, and those borders aren't even the same size. It's a little thinner for the gin, a little bit thicker for the book. So as I said, depending on where your images are from, you may or may not want to turn that on, but I would definitely suggest playing around with it just to see if you like what it does. Back to our settings, we're going to move into our category details section now. Now there's only a couple options in here if we pop into the image settings section. And our only one is for our show full category images. So that's the same setting we just talked about, but it would be for our catalog or our category overview page. Again, maybe we want to resize those, maybe we want to leave them the way they are. Back to our settings, and we'll continue on to product listing. We have image settings again. It's the same ones that we've already seen. We can choose our image formats if we want square or portrait. And then we can also choose if we want those product images resized again. Back to our settings and into display settings. There's only one option in here, and this is for our product count on the left-hand side of the page here. As you can see, beside each one of my categories, it has a little number telling our customers exactly how many products are within that category. If you want to remove that, you just have to toggle that off, and it keeps the category, but it removes the number. Moving back to settings, we will go into our product details section now. Now, beside your homepage, this is probably going to be the section where you spend the next most amount of time. So going into our display settings first, we have an option for a buy now button. So if we want to give customers a buy now button, we can toggle that on. We can also choose if we want to give customers the ability to leave product reviews, and that's where the stars kind of on the middle of the page come into play there. We can also choose if we want our customers to see inventory levels. Now you have three options in here. You can choose if you want customers to see the exact stock levels, so they see exactly how many you have. Maybe customers just see if it's in stock or out of stock, or you don't show that information at all. If it's in stock, they can buy it. If it's out of stock, they can't. We can also choose if we want customers to see any of our product identifiers, so any sort of SKUs or codes we might have entered in. I have my article code showing up, which is the same thing as my custom SKU on the retail side. That's over in kind of the top right here. We have an option for inventory per location. So if you are multi-location on the retail side and you're selling from your different locations, you can choose if you want customers to see inventory levels per location, if you just want them to see if it's in stock or out of stock, or you don't give them that information at all. Our final option in here is to choose if we want to show the brand name in the title or not. So I don't have a brand entered in for this item. I keep forgetting to do that. But if I was to turn this on, it would add in the brand name right before the item description or the name of the item. So if this was a Nike item, it would say Nike 1, a Court of Thorns and Roses. So it just throws that brand right in front of the item name. Moving back to our settings, we'll go into the image settings section. Now, our first option is a new one. This is where we can choose if we want to enable product image zoom. So if we want customers to be able to zoom over the image, we can turn that on. And then we have the other two options we've seen before. We have our image formatting if we want square or portrait, and then we have the full product image resizing if we wanted that as well. Moving back to our settings, we'll head into the new checkout option. Now, depending on if you have the new checkout enabled or not, you may or may not see this section populating. When we get to the Q&A, I'll show you where to turn on that new checkout if it's something that has not been done yet. But this is where you can modify the checkout screen to keep the theme consistent with the rest of your website. So in here, you can modify the background color that's being used. You can change the button colors and the text colors. You can modify your fonts and the color of any links that might be on this page. And then you can also enter in your logo and your favicon if you have those. Our final option is for a section called System Colors. Now, there's not too much to do in here, but if we open up this core styling section, this is where we can choose the color of text in different pages that you don't really have access to modify. For example, this could be like the cart page or create an account page. Those aren't pages that you have access to modify, but you can come in here to modify the colors that are being used so everything is still consistent with the theme of your website. Beautiful. We'll publish all of those changes that we just went through and made. And now that's going to be it for the Ignite theme. Now, I know that what we just went through was a lot. There's a lot that you can do in this Ignite theme. We do have a YouTube video here. So if I open up YouTube, there is a YouTube video on this Ignite theme. It's basically a crash course video and goes through everything we just went through. But I find a lot of customers like to have that the YouTube video open in one window, their website open in another, and then make changes along with the video. Before you know it, your website starts looking like an actual website with your content and images entered in. But this Ignite theme video on YouTube can be super helpful. Maybe this theme is almost checking off all of your boxes, but maybe there are a couple things you're thinking you would like to modify. If we head to our back office here, where we see the theme that we currently have installed, you should see a little tab for Advanced. This is where you can make some more advanced changes to your theme. Now, we do typically suggest that it's a good idea to have some knowledge of coding or custom CSS in here, because that's what these sections are all about. It's not really toggles like we just talked about, turning things off and on. Now, you do have two options in terms of changes that you can make. You can go in and do some custom CSS. Typically, those are going to be smaller changes you might make, like changing a font size or a color of something. You do also have the option to go in and edit your theme's code. So if there's something specifically that you wanted to build in or you wanted to move different components around, you're likely looking at editing the theme's code at that point. Something to keep in mind is you are more than welcome to try using some of these, but if you decide to do custom CSS, you will receive any automatic theme updates that we push out down the road. So if we implement an update, you will receive it. If you decide to go in and actually edit the theme's code, you will not receive any of those automatic updates we push out down the road. At that point, we don't know what you've coded in, and it would be awful if we pushed out an update that potentially broke something that you went ahead and had built into your account. So just something to keep in mind if you're planning on doing any sort of custom work. Also keep in mind that this is typically outside of the scope of what our support team is able to assist with, which is why we usually suggest getting a developer involved or someone who does kind of know what they're doing for sure. Maybe the Ignite theme isn't quite cutting it for you though. Maybe you want to see what else we have available. Over on the left-hand side of the page here, we do have a tab that gets you into our theme store. Now, this is where you can see a list of all of the other themes we have available. There's tons and tons and tons if you scroll through. If you see a theme that kind of catches your eye, what I would suggest doing is I would hit the View Demo button. What this is going to do is this is going to open up this website. It's basically fully functional. You just can't place an order, but you can go ahead and scroll through all of the different areas, pop into products, see how everything looks, what it looks like, if you like how it works and how everything is displayed. But this typically gives you a bit of a better idea as to what you're looking at with this theme. With that being said, it can be a little bit challenging in here to figure out what themes or what features each theme offers. So if you pop to this link here, themes.lightspeedhq.com, this is where you can filter through all of the different themes we have available for specific features. So let's say, for example, on the left-hand side of the page here, maybe an Instagram feed is really, really important to me. I love having my Instagram feed. I love curating it, and I really want to display that on my website. I could go through and check off that I want to see which themes have an Instagram feed, and this is going to show you all of the themes that have that feature available. So this can definitely help minimize the time that you're spending looking for all of the themes, because then you can look for specific features that you might be interested in. One other thing that I did want to mention before we move on is if we open up one of these themes here, if you just click on the theme name, you are going to see who the developer is. Do keep in mind that a lot of the times the developer for these other themes are not going to be Lightspeed. A lot of these other themes that are available do have a monthly fee attached to them. Because they're coming from another developer, we have to pay to be able to use them, but they're not coming from Lightspeed. That just means that if you need any assistance with that theme, you can try our support team and they'll see if it's something they can assist with. But a lot of the times your best bet is going to be to reach out to that developer directly because they're the ones who built out the theme and they know how it works. Perfect. From here, there are a couple other design things I wanted to touch on really quickly before we talk about Lightspeed payments. Then we'll get into our Q&A and I will be able to cut you all loose. So if I open up my website again here, do a little refresh. First thing I wanted to talk about again was going to be our top navigation line here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, typically your tabs on the top are going to be coming from your categories. That's not always the case though. Maybe you have an existing page on your website that you want to link in this top navigation because you really, really want that exposure. You really want customers to see it. We can add in additional navigation links on our top navigation here. So I'm going to head to my back office again. We are going to go ahead and pop into our settings section at the bottom left of the side of the page here. I lied. We are not going into settings. We are going into design. Someone asked a question about settings, which I will get to, but it threw me off for a second there. So we're going to pop into our design tab on the left-hand side of the page. And then staying on the left-hand side of the page, we're going to go into the navigation section. From here, we're going to open up our default option. And down at the bottom of the page, you should have a button to add in a link. We're going to go ahead and hit the add link button. We can give that link a title, and this is what customers are going to see on the top navigation of our website. And then we can choose where we want that to link our customers to. So is it taking them to just back to the homepage, to a specific brand, a specific category? Maybe we have like a product of the week, and this is going to take them right to that specific product. Is it going to take them to an existing page on the website, one of our content pages? Or is it going to take them to an outside URL? Is it linking them somewhere else besides Lightspeed? You get to choose what your option is going to be. I'm going to choose the page option just for an example. And then over on the right side, we're going to choose which page we want this to link our customers to. So I'm going to choose my About Us page. Maybe I have a really, really interesting story about how I got started, and I find that not enough customers are seeing it. I want to enter it into my top navigation so it's really in my customers' faces when they pop onto my website. So we're going to use our About Us page. I'm going to save. And now from here, if I open up my website again, watching our top navigation, we now have our new link up on the top there. So if I click this link, it brings me to my existing About Us page that I already entered into my footer section. So there's lots and lots that you can do with those navigation links. Second thing I wanted to touch on here was going to be our blog feature. So heading to our back office again, I'm going to go back to home and we'll go into the blogs tab on the left-hand side of the page. From here, first thing you're going to have to do is actually create the blog that your customers are going to be using. So we're going to say add blog. We're going to give it a title. So I'm just going to call it Maddie's blog. And then down at the bottom, you can choose what you want to happen with comments. Are they enabled? Are they disabled? Or do you have to approve them first? We'll save our changes in the top right corner. And now we have to actually create our posts that we want to enter into our blogs, all of the content we want our customers to see. So popping into the blog posts tab on the left-hand side, we're going to hit the add blog post button. And we're going to create our first post. So maybe for my title, I'm going to say just our first post, if we can spell. Blog, we are going to choose which blog it's going to go to. So maybe we have a couple different blogs that we do. We can choose where this post is going to belong. We'll save our changes. And then it posts with a little bit more information for us to enter in. So on the top left, we can give it an image. Underneath that, we can choose if we're making it live or not. We can modify our title, the language it's available in, the author of this post. So maybe we have a couple different people that write blog posts. We have any tags or keywords we may want to enter in. We can give it a little bit of a summary, so give the customer a bit of a sneak peek as to what this post is about. And then underneath that, we have our content section. This is where you can put anything and everything you want to say in that blog post. Put, write an entire novel in there, whatever makes your heart happy. That's what you can enter into this content section. Once that's been done, we'll go ahead and we'll make this bad boy live, save our changes. And now if I open up my website, we'll head back to our home page here. We now have our blog populating on our top navigation here. If we have that blog preview available that we talked about in our design section, that would show up right down here. So our 3 most recent blog posts would be previewed here, but customers would also be able to access it by clicking on the link at the top navigation, and then they would see a list of all of the posts that we have made. Last thing we will go through before I go into the questions that I see popping up is going to be Lightspeed payments. Now, if you're starting to think about payment processing, it's possible that you've gone into the settings section of your account. So settings on the bottom left, you've gone into payment providers over on the right-hand side of the page, and you don't see Lightspeed payments populating. So if you're using Lightspeed payments on the retail side, you're more than welcome to use it on eCom. However, before you can start using it, there's a short list of requirements your website has to meet before our payments team can turn the payments module on for you on the website side of things. In our Help Center, we have an article that goes through the entire list of requirements, and we'll touch on it right now so you kind of can get an idea as to what you're working towards. It's nothing too crazy, but in our Help Center, we have an article called Preparing eCom for Lightspeed Payments Approval. And I use the word approval very loosely because you're already approved on the retail side. It's more of an enabling process at this point. It just has to be turned on for eCom. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And I want to talk about this section here first. First thing we have is adding your legal agreement to your content pages. So back in that content section where you have all of those pre-created content pages, there are going to be a few of them that you have to fill out. First one is your privacy policy. And then you also have your terms and conditions. Those are the two big legal pages. If this is something that you've generated before, you can copy and paste it into the content section in your account. But if you have never had to create these before, there are some online generators that you can take a look at. There is this one called Termly.io that I've had a lot of merchants use in the past, and this is where you can generate that information that you can then populate on your website. So that's a potential option. Underneath that, you are going to have a page that lists your shipping policies. This is basically going to encompass anything and everything to do with your shipping strategy. This is going to talk about where you ship. So is it international? Is it just your country? Is it just your state? Is this going to be, are there any local delivery options or in-store pickup options? What are the costs going to be? Do you offer any sort of free shipping, or is there always a cost associated with it? Who are you going to be using? About how long does it take? And if you're selling alcohol, there are a couple additional things that you have to include in here as well. Underneath that, we do have a refund and return policy. So do you accept returns? Is it everything? What's the time frame? Can the customer bring it in the store? Do they ship it back? Does it have to be in a certain condition? How do they get their money back? Anything to do with your refunds and returns. The payment method section, this is probably going to be one of the easiest ones, because you basically just have to write either a sentence or kind of some bullet points about the actual payment providers you accept with your website. If you're using Lightspeed payments, it should be the same ones you accept for retail. So like Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover. And then if you're going to offer anything else like PayPal, you'll want to make sure to list that in this payment methods section. It's also important to make sure that you have contact information standard across the website so customers are able to get a hold of you and they don't have to go digging for that information on your website. Now, popping back up to the top here really quickly, there are a couple other things to think about. First thing is that your products, you have to have products visible, and those products have to have images. If there are any items on your website that do not have images currently, I would make sure to remove those while you're getting your website approved for payments. And then as you get images, you can pop them back onto the website. Making sure that your homepage looks like an authentic homepage. You've gone in, you've entered in content, and also making sure those content pages have been completed. Making sure that the shipping methods you set up in your settings match the actual shipping page that you outlined. We talked about legal agreements. And then if you're selling alcohol, you do have to have some sort of age gate or age verification. So that way people have to pop in their age before they can access the website. Once you feel that all of this has been done, there is a link at the very bottom of this article here where you can contact our support team. They'd create a ticket for the payments team. Payments team is going to review it, and then they'll let you know if you're good to go or if there's anything that has to be modified. I know this seems like a lot. A lot of this stuff is going to happen organically as you build out your website. The spot that you might have to spend a little bit more time on is likely going to be the legal pages or the content pages, but everything else like your home page and your products and images, a lot of that is just going to happen organically as you build out the website. So don't stress too much about this, but you always have access to this list just to kind of keep thinking about it in the back of your mind. Beautiful. So that, my friends, is going to be all of the content we have for today. I'm going to do a little bit of a wrap up, then we'll get into our Q&A. So if anyone has any additional questions they wanted to go through, please feel free to pop them into the questions box. Now, in terms of next steps, my team is going to reach out to get you booked in for a one-on-one consultation. As I mentioned earlier, I know we go through a lot of content in these webinars, and it can be fairly quick. So if there's anything that you wanted to revisit, go through again, or you had specific workflows you wanted to go through, 100% we'll get you booked in for a one-on-one with an implementation specialist to answer any questions that you do have. In the follow-up email, you should also have some links for the SEO and conversion webinars if you wanted to attend those. But especially for those of you who are new to websites, if you're in your eCom account, there is a help button in the bottom left-hand corner. Within that help button, you should have a go live or getting started checklist that you can review. This just gives you kind of a loose list of things to work on and things to complete, gives you a little bit of a timeline as well. And I know I work really well with lists, helps keep me very, very organized. So I would definitely suggest looking at that, especially if you're brand new to websites. But go ahead and start working on your website's design, play around with the different themes, see what you like, what you don't like, and you can start adding in your content. There is going to be a small list of homework in the follow-up email that you can review. Again, nothing too crazy, but we will reach out to get you booked in for a one-on-one. Let's go ahead and get into the Q&A. I have quite a few questions that popped up, so we'll cover those, and then I will be able to let you guys all go. So a question coming through here about, does Lightspeed have developers in-house we can work with for more advanced work? So we do have a professional services team. However, I don't know how much development they're able to do for you, but that would be a great question to ask your account manager to see if that would be a good fit. It is an additional service that you could pay for, and they could potentially work with you to help build out the website. Besides that, if we go to, I'm going to hop out of here. If you go to just the Lightspeed HQ website and scroll down to the footer section, there is a spot under partners for eCom customization. This kind of just links you to some other partners that we have that you could potentially work with. They don't work for us. They're not an in-house developer here, but they are partners that we have referred other customers to in the past, and things have worked out for them. So those are kind of your options. You are more than welcome to source your own developer if you wanted to. That is an option as well, but super, super good question. Can you go over the appointment booking feature? Could we use it for clients to RSVP for events at our store? Let me see. I don't know if I have that turned on here. Let's see. Okay. To access the appointment feature, that would be within your customers section on the left-hand side of the page here. You would then go into the appointments tab on the left-hand side of the page. And this is where you can basically set up your different services or potentially the events that you offer. It doesn't look like my account has access to it. That might be a really good idea to discuss that in a one-on-one session, because I don't know if you can have multiple customers book for the same slot. It might just be a one and done situation, but that would be a really good thing to go through in our one-on-one session. What I have had people do before, if you have events, is they've created that event as an inventory item on the retail side. They've put in the quantity of kind of how many attendees they want. So if you sell, say 100 tickets for it, they've put in a quantity of 100, and then customers could purchase it, or if it's $0, they could, go through with the order and not actually pay for anything, depending on if there's a cost associated with it. But I think a one-on-one session would probably be really good just to determine exactly what you're looking for, and we can make sure that'll be kind of the best fit for you. How do we add a domain name that we already own? Super, super good question. So for that, we are going to head back to our main menu here. We're going to pop into our we're going to go into settings on the bottom left-hand side of the page here. And then in our third column of options, we're going to go into domain. So if we open up this domain section, I'm going to delete this and we'll kind of start over. What we should be able to do from here is we'll hit the Add New Domain button in the top right corner. You'll type in the domain that you're wanting to use. And we'll save that. Now, what's automatically going to pop up is this page here, and this goes through your DNS settings. These settings have to be changed with whoever you purchased your domain with. So for example, if it was GoDaddy, you would have to change these on the GoDaddy side. Basically just a matter of copying and pasting this information from Lightspeed into its respective spot with whoever you purchased that domain with. Once that's been done, if we go back to our domains tab in the top right corner here, you have a button over on the right-hand side of the page to set this as your default. What that's going to do is this is actually going to switch over your domain. So if customers were to type in, testdomain12345.com, they would be taken to my Lightspeed website instead of using the default domain that Lightspeed gives you. If at any point you want to view that list of DNS settings, you can do that by just hitting the check domain connection text here in the middle of the page, and it opens up those DNS settings for you so you can take another look at them. Beautiful. If that is something that you find you need a little bit of assistance with, you can contact our support team to do that. They're usually pretty good about being able to help with that. So you're more than welcome to give it a try on your own. There is some information in the Help Center about setting it up, but you can also contact our support team for a little bit more assistance. Beautiful. Is there an option to add buy now, pay later options such as Sezzle? Super good question. So part of that is going to depend on your location. If you go into the app section on the left-hand side of the page here, you can open this up. Now, if we go down to the payment section, usually it's down at the bottom. This is where you'd see a list of all of the payment apps we have available. So for example, because I'm in Canada, we have like the PayBrite option. You might see, Affirm or Sezzle. So there are some different options in here depending on your location, but you can add them in through the app section back here, for sure. Awesome. Another question coming through here about adding in categories. Can I create a category just in eCom? Absolutely, you can. So let's pop into our products tab on the left-hand side of the page here. From here, we're going to stay on the left-hand side of the page and we're going to pop into the categories section. And up in the top right corner, you can hit add category. This is where you can manually create a category on the eCom side. Do keep in mind that if that category is created in eCom, it's only going to be displayed in eCom. It's never going to show up on the retail side. So just something to keep in mind for you. Beautiful. That, my friends, looks like that's all the questions that came through today. So we will go ahead and wrap everything up. I know I sound like a little bit of a broken record, but as I mentioned earlier, my team is going to reach out to get you booked in for a one-on-one session. You are going to get a copy of today's webinar recording. You'll be able to rewatch it yourself or pass it along to anyone else who you feel might benefit from this. But you can also contact your support team if anything pops up. Thank you so much for joining me today, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And as I said, hopefully I'll get to work with some of you in the future. Bye, everyone.